High observer Kethra stood on the bridge of the Silent Witness and watched the stars. She had done this for 40 years. Watching was her job. Watching was what the Velkari Dominion paid her to do. The Velkari were an old race. They had conquered 3,000 worlds across the galaxy. They had crushed empires and broken species that dared to challenge them. But before they conquered, they watched. They learned. They recorded everything in the Imperial archives. Kethra's ship was small and fast. It had no weapons because it did not need them. The Silent Witness could hide from any scanner in the galaxy. It could sit in the darkness between stars and record the movements of entire fleets without being seen. Today was supposed to be a quiet day. This star system had no name. It had no planets worth taking. It was empty and forgotten, a crossroads in the void where nothing ever happened. Then something happened. "High Observer," her second officer called out. His name was Velthan, and he was young and eager. "We have contacts, 12 ships entering the system." Kethra turned her 4 eyes toward the main screen. The ships appeared as small dots of light, moving in a tight formation. She studied their shapes and frowned. They were ugly things, blocky and rough, covered in thick armor plates. Their engines burned with chemical fire, leaving trails of light behind them. "Run them through the archives," she ordered. Velthan worked his console. A moment later, he looked up with confusion on his face. "High Observer, the archives have no record of these ships, no record of this species at all." Kethra felt a cold feeling in her stomach. The archives held information on every spacefaring species in the known galaxy, every single one. To find nothing meant these creatures came from somewhere the Velkari had never explored. "Listen to their communications," she said. The bridge filled with strange sounds, harsh voices speaking in a language that was rough and direct. The translation software worked quickly. "Colony ship is on schedule. All escorts maintain formation. We'll reach the new world in 3 cycles." "Colony ship," Kethra repeated. She looked at the largest vessel in the formation. It was slow and fat, clearly not built for war. The other ships surrounded it like guards protecting something precious. "They are settlers, looking for a new home." She tapped her console and recorded a note. "Unknown species, appears to be early spacefaring stage. Technology is primitive but functional. 12 vessels total, 1 colony ship, 11 escorts. No threat to the Dominion." Velthan suddenly straightened in his seat. "High Observer, more contacts, coming in from the other side of the system." Kethra looked at the screen and felt her blood turn to ice. She knew those ships. Every Velkari knew those ships. They were curved and organic, grown rather than built. Their hulls pulsed with sickly colors. They moved like predators hunting prey. The Rethvan Collective. The Rethvan were parasites. They did not build or create. They consumed. They attacked other species, took their technology, and used their bodies as hosts for their young. The Velkari had fought them for 3,000 years. Millions had died in those wars. Now 40 Rethvan warships were flooding into the system, straight toward the unknown settlers. "Should we warn them?" Velthan asked. His voice was shaking. Kethra hesitated. The Dominion had rules, strict rules. They did not interfere with other species. They did not reveal themselves. They watched and recorded. That was all. She opened a channel to Imperial Command, far away on the throne world. "This is High Observer Kethra. We have a situation. Unknown species about to engage with Rethvan forces. Requesting orders." The response came quickly. The voice was cold and official. "Observe. Do not interfere. Record everything." Kethra closed the channel and watched the screen. The unknown ships had seen the Rethvan now. They were changing formation, pulling tighter around their colony ship. The escorts moved to the front, putting themselves between the enemy and the civilians behind them. "They're not running," Velthan said quietly. He was right. The unknown ships were not trying to escape. They were forming a wall. They were going to fight. Kethra felt something strange in her chest. She had watched many battles over her long career. She had seen species surrender. She had seen them flee. She had seen them beg for mercy. She had never seen a fleet of 11 small warships prepare to fight 40 Rethvan predators with no hope of winning. "What are they doing?" Velthan whispered. Kethra watched one of the unknown ships move ahead of the others. It was the smallest in the group, a destroyer maybe. It turned to face the coming swarm alone. A communication came through, a voice, strong and calm. "This is Captain Marcus Chen of the destroyer. Defiance. All ships, hold the line. No one gets through to the colony ship, not one of them. Do you understand?" Other voices answered. Human voices, Kethra realized. That was what they called themselves. Humans. "Copy that, Defiance. We hold. For the colony. For the kids. They want to fight? Let's give them one they'll remember." The Rethvon swarm grew closer. Their ships spread out like fingers reaching for prey. In minutes, the battle would begin. Kethra sat down slowly in her command chair. She had a feeling she was about to witness something she would never forget. "Record everything," she told her crew. "Every second, every ship, everything." The first Rethvon weapons fired. The darkness of space lit up with acid and fire, and the humans did not run. On her screen, Kethra watched the destroyer Defiance charge straight into the heart of the enemy fleet. Alone, guns blazing, no retreat. "What manner of creatures are these?" Velthan asked. Kethra had no answer. In all her years, in all her records, she had never seen anything like this. A species that chose death over abandoning their own. A species that fought when fighting was madness. She recorded it all. Every moment. Every sacrifice. The galaxy needed to know about these humans, even if none of them survived the next hour. The battle was not a battle. It was a slaughter. Kethra watched from the bridge of the Silent Witness as the Rethvan swarm fell upon the human fleet like wolves upon sheep. The enemy ships were faster, stronger, and far more numerous. Their weapons spat streams of bioacid that could melt through metal like water through paper. The humans knew they could not win. Kethra could see it in their formation. They were not trying to win. They were trying to buy time. The destroyer, Defiance, was the first to die. It flew straight into the center of the Rethvon fleet with all weapons firing. Missiles exploded against organic hulls. Kinetic rounds punched holes through enemy ships. For a brief, beautiful moment, the small human vessel was dealing real damage. Then the swarm surrounded it. Acid streams struck the Defiance from every direction. Its armor melted. Its hull cracked open. But even as the ship died, it did not stop fighting. Kethra watched in disbelief as the Defiance turned toward the largest Rethvon cruiser and accelerated. "They're going to ram," Velthan said. The Defiance struck the cruiser at full speed. The human reactor exploded on impact. Both ships vanished in a ball of white fire. "They killed themselves," Velthan whispered. "They killed themselves to take the enemy with them." Kethra said nothing. She was watching the other human ships. They had seen the Defiance die. They had seen their comrades choose death, and not one of them retreated. The human cruiser, Iron Will, moved forward to fill the gap. Its captain's voice came through the communication channels, strong and steady despite the chaos around him. "All ships, close the line. Nothing gets through. Nothing." The Rethvon attacked again. 3 ships focused their fire on the Iron Will. Acid burned through its forward sections. Fires erupted along its hull. The ship began to list to one side, wounded and dying, but its guns kept firing. Kethra zoomed her sensors onto the Iron Will's bridge. Through the damaged hull, she could see humans moving. They were not panicking. They were not crying. They were working, fighting. A female officer was shouting orders while blood ran down her face from a wound on her head. A young man was carrying wounded crew members to escape pods while explosions shook the ship around him. The Iron Will lasted 7 more minutes. It destroyed 2 Rethvon ships before its reactor finally failed. The escape pods launched seconds before the explosion. Small metal seeds cast into the void. The Rethvon destroyed them all. Every single pod. They showed no mercy. Ship by ship, the human fleet died. The frigate. Never Surrender fought until its last gun melted from overuse. The corvette, Distant Hope, used its own body to shield the colony ship from an acid barrage. The destroyer, Final Stand, rammed another enemy cruiser when its weapons ran empty. Each human ship that fell took enemies with it. Each crew fought to the last breath. Kethra recorded it all with growing wonder and growing horror. After 2 hours, only 3 human ships remained. They formed a final wall in front of the colony ship. Their hulls were burned and broken. Their weapons were nearly spent. But they held the line. The colony ship tried to run. Its massive engines fired, pushing the great vessel toward the edge of the system, toward escape, toward safety. It was too slow. The Rethvon swarm flowed around the last defenders like water around stones. 20 ships surrounded the colony ship. Acid streams struck its engines first, killing its ability to run. Then they targeted the hull, cutting it open like predators gutting their prey. Kethra heard the screams, human voices crying out in fear and pain, children wailing for their parents, parents calling for their children. The sounds filled the bridge of the silent witness and made her crew look away in shame. The 3 remaining warships charged into the swarm. They knew they were going to die. They charged anyway. The frigate Last Light exploded first, then the corvette Braveheart. The final ship, a damaged destroyer called Remember Us, fought for 3 more minutes alone against 20 enemies. Its captain spoke one final time before the end, a human male with gray hair and tired eyes. "This is Captain James Rodriguez of the Remember Us. If anyone is listening, remember what happened here. Remember that we did not run. Remember that we fought for our families until the end. Remember us." The Remember Us died in fire and acid. Its hull broke apart. Its crew perished. The name became truth. The Rethvon swarm moved on. They did not salvage the wrecks. They did not search for survivors. They had no interest in the humans. The attack had been random violence, nothing more. A predator killing prey because it could. Silence fell over the battlefield. Kethra stared at the screen. 12 human ships reduced to floating wreckage. Thousands of human bodies drifting in the cold void. The great colony ship torn open, its precious cargo of families and children scattered among the stars. "They're gone," Velton said quietly. "All of them." Kethra replayed the footage. She watched the Defiance ram the cruiser. She watched the Iron Will fight with half its hull missing. She watched the last 3 ships charge into certain death because their people were behind them. "They didn't surrender," she said slowly. "Not one of them. They knew they would die, and they fought anyway." "Why?" Velton asked. "What was the point? They could have surrendered. They could have fled. Some might have lived." Kethra thought about the screams from the colony ship, the children crying, the parents calling. "They were protecting their young," she said. "They knew they couldn't win, but they could buy time. They could make the enemy pay. They could die standing between the monsters and the children." She filed her report to Imperial Command. Unknown species, primitive technology, destroyed by Rethvon forces, no survivors, no threat to the Dominion. But as she sent the report, Kethra looked at the wreckage one more time. Something bothered her, something she couldn't name. These humans had come from somewhere. They had been going somewhere. They had colony ships and warships and families seeking new homes, which meant there were more of them. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars the Velkhari knew, there were more humans. And one day, they would come looking for their lost children. Kethra shivered. She told herself it was nothing. The humans were primitive, weak. They had lost their entire fleet to a simple Rethvon raiding party. But she could not forget the way they had died, the way they had refused to give up, the way they had chosen death over abandoning their own. She hoped she would never meet more of them. 6 cycles passed. The wreckage drifted alone in the empty system. The Velkhari had moved on to other observations, other reports, other species to watch. The humans were forgotten. Then the signal came. Deep in the heart of the Velkhari throne world, in the great palace of Velkhara Prime, an intelligence officer rushed through golden halls with fear in his eyes. He passed guards and nobles and servants, not stopping until he reached the throne room of Archon Veltharin. The Archon was old, even by Velkhari standards. He had ruled the Dominion for 200 years. He had seen wars and plagues and the rise and fall of a dozen enemy empires. Nothing surprised him anymore, until now. "A signal," the officer said, breathing hard, "from the system where the unknown species was destroyed. Something is broadcasting." The Archon raised one eyebrow. The Rethvon? No, my lord, something else. Something we cannot identify. The Archon ordered a probe sent to investigate. It arrived at the battlefield 3 days later and began scanning the wreckage. What it found made no sense. Among the broken ships and frozen bodies, a single escape pod drifted. It was small and damaged, barely functional. Its hull was burned from acid, and its systems were failing. But it was intact, and it was broadcasting. The signal was simple, a distress call, repeating over and over on every frequency the tiny pod could reach. The translation came through clearly. Survivor, please help. Survivor. Please help. The Archon stared at the report. A survivor. After 6 cycles alone in the void, someone was still alive. Send a ship, he ordered. I want to know who is in that pod. A Velkhari vessel arrived at the wreckage and carefully retrieved the escape pod. They brought it aboard and opened it with great care. Inside, they found a cryogenic chamber. The cold sleep had kept the occupant alive while the universe forgot about them. The occupant was a child, a human female, no more than 7 years old by their standards. She had brown hair and small hands and a face that looked peaceful in sleep. She wore a simple dress with flowers on it. Around her neck hung a metal pendant with words etched into it. Maya Chen, age 7. If found, please return to the colony ship New Beginnings. The Velkhari officer who found her stood in silence for a long moment. The New Beginnings was gone. Everyone on it was dead. This child had no home to return to, no family waiting for her. She was alone. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was the second signal. The probe had detected something else, another transmission coming from far away. Not from Velkhari space, not from Rethvon territory, from somewhere beyond the galactic rim, from a region of space that no Velkhari had ever explored. The signal was enormous. It carried the weight of thousands of ships communicating together, and it was aimed directly at the escape pod's distress call. Imperial linguists worked for 3 days to decode the fragments. When they finally succeeded, they brought the translation to the Archon with shaking hands. The message read, "Distress signal received. Source identified as Colony Fleet vessel. All units respond. 7th Expeditionary Fleet is en route to coordinates. Hold position if able. Help is coming. Repeat, help is coming. To whoever harmed our people, know this. We are coming for you, and we will answer for every life you took." The Archon read the message 3 times. Then he read it again. 7th Fleet, he said slowly. They have a 7th Fleet. He walked to the Imperial Archives, the greatest collection of knowledge in the galaxy. Every species, every ship, every world was recorded here. He searched for humanity, nothing. He searched for human military forces, nothing. He searched for any reference to humans at all, nothing. The Archon turned to his advisors with something cold growing in his chest. How is this possible? We have records of every spacefaring species in the known galaxy. How do we have nothing on a species with multiple fleets? No one had an answer. The Archon looked at the decoded message again. 7th Expeditionary Fleet. The word expeditionary bothered him. It meant a fleet sent to explore, to expand. If the humans had a 7th Fleet for exploration, how many fleets did they have for war? And where had they been hiding? The answer came from an old astronomer who spent his life mapping the edges of known space. He looked at the signal's origin point and went pale. Beyond the rim, he said quietly. They came from beyond the galactic rim, from the void between galaxies. No one has ever explored that region. No one thought anything could live there. The Archon understood then. The humans had not been hiding. They had simply been somewhere the Velkhari never thought to look. Somewhere far from the busy center of the galaxy. Somewhere dark and distant and completely unknown. And now they were coming. How long until their fleet arrives? The Archon asked. The astronomer calculated. Based on the signal strength and direction, I estimate 4 cycles, maybe less. 4 cycles. The Archon had 4 cycles to prepare for a species he knew nothing about. A species that had just lost thousands of its people to the Rethvon. A species that was sending a military fleet in response. He thought about the battle footage he had reviewed. the human ships ramming enemies, the captains choosing death over retreat. The final message. Remember us. He thought about the child sleeping in her cryogenic pod, 7 years old, flowers on her dress, alone in the universe. What would the humans do when they found out what happened to their children? The Archon gave his orders. Recall High Observer Kethra. Assemble a diplomatic delegation, gather a defensive fleet, prepare for first contact, and pray that the humans came to talk. Because if they came to fight, the Archon was no longer certain the Dominion could stop them. The child slept on, dreaming of parents who would never come. And somewhere in the void between stars, the 7th Fleet burned toward her location with fire in their hearts and vengeance in their minds. They were coming, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Velkhari waited in the darkness. 200 warships floated in formation around the old battlefield, the finest vessels in the Dominion fleet, armed with weapons that had crushed rebellions and broken empires. Archon Veltharan had sent his best. High Observer Kethra stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel, Fisino, voice of the Empire. She had been recalled from her observation duties to serve as a witness. She was the only Velkhari who had seen the humans fight, the only one who knew what they were capable of. She hoped her knowledge would be enough. The child Maya remained in medical care aboard the flagship. The Velkhari doctors had woken her gently and explained that she was safe. She had cried for 3 days straight, asking for her parents, asking to go home. The doctors had no answers for her. Now they waited for her people to arrive. "Any sign of them?" Admiral Corthan asked. He was a large Velkhari, with scars from 100 battles. He did not fear the humans. He did not fear anything. "Not yet," a sensor officer replied, "but the signal strength is increasing. They are close." Kethra watched the empty space ahead. The humans would come through subspace, she assumed. All species use subspace for faster-than-light travel. It was the only way. She was wrong. Reality broke. There was no other way to describe it. Space itself tore open like cloth being ripped by giant hands. A wound appeared in the universe, burning with strange light and crackling with energy that made every sensor on every ship scream in alarm. And through that wound came the humans. Ships poured out of the tear in reality. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. They filled the darkness like stars being born. Carriers so large they blocked out the light of distant suns. Dreadnoughts covered in weapons that glowed with deadly energy. Cruisers and destroyers and frigates beyond counting. Fighter craft swarmed between the larger vessels like angry insects. Kethra's console showed numbers that made no sense. 3,000 ships, 4,000, 5,000. The count kept rising. Admiral Corthan's confidence vanished from his face. "That's not a fleet," he whispered. "That's not possible." At the center of the human formation, a single ship emerged. It was larger than anything Kethra had ever seen. Larger than the Velkhari flagship. Larger than some space stations. Its hull was covered in weapons, and its engines burned with enough power to move moons. The name was written on its side in letters that needed no translation. UHS Vengeance. The tear in reality closed behind the fleet. The humans had arrived. A communication channel opened. Every screen on every Velkhari ship showed the same image. A human female in dark armor stood on the bridge of the Vengeance. She had gray streaks in her black hair and cold eyes that had seen too much death. Her face showed no emotion at all. "I am Admiral Hana Reyes," she said. Her voice was calm and controlled. "Commander of the United Human Systems 7th Expeditionary Fleet. We received a distress signal from this location 6 cycles ago." She paused. Behind her, the bridge of the Vengeance was busy with activity. Hundreds of officers worked at their stations, preparing for whatever came next. 12 of our ships were destroyed here," Admiral Reyes continued. "A colony fleet carrying 4,600 civilians, families, children, all gone." Her eyes seemed to look directly at Kethra through the screen. "We know what killed them. We have seen the wreckage. We have analyzed the weapon signatures, the Rethvan Collective." Admiral Corthan stepped forward to respond. "Admiral Reyes, I am Admiral Corthan of the Velkhari Dominion. We witnessed the attack on your people. We recorded it. We have the footage if you wish to see it." "You watched," Admiral Reyes said. Her voice did not change, but something in her eyes grew harder. You watched our people die and did nothing. We had orders not to interfere. I understand. The human admiral's face remained still as stone. I am not here for you. I am here for the Rethvon. Give me their location, and we will leave your space in peace. A holographic image of Archon Veltharin appeared beside Admiral Corathon. The ruler of the Dominion had been watching from afar. Now he spoke directly. Admiral Reyes, the Rethvon Collective is vast. They control hundreds of systems. They have millions of ships. Even a fleet as impressive as yours cannot hope to destroy them. Admiral Reyes smiled. It was a small movement of her lips that held no warmth at all. We do not need to destroy all of them. We only need to make them pay for what they did. Give me the coordinates of their core worlds, their home worlds, their breeding grounds. The Archon hesitated. And if we refuse? Then we will find them ourselves. We will search every system in this galaxy until we locate them. And we will not be careful about what is in our way. The threat hung in the air like poison. Kethra understood now. The humans were not asking permission. They were offering the Velkhari a choice. Help them or be treated as enemies. There was no third option. You would start a war with the Dominion? The Archon asked. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. Admiral Reyes leaned forward slightly. Your Dominion watched our children burn and did nothing. Do not speak to me of your power. You had the chance to save them. You chose to record their deaths instead. She straightened again. I will ask one more time. Where are the Rethvon? The Archon looked at his fleet. 200 ships against 5,000. Weapons he did not understand against technology he had never seen. A species that did not know how to surrender against an empire that had forgotten how to fight. He made his choice. I will give you the coordinates, he said quietly. The core worlds, the breeding grounds, all of it. Wise decision. But I must ask one thing in return. Admiral Reyes raised an eyebrow. Ask. What will you do to them? The Rethvon have existed for millions of years. They are a force of nature. What can you possibly do that will make a difference? The human admiral was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft and terrible. We will teach them something they have never learned in all their millions of years. We will teach them fear. We will teach them what happens when you touch human children. And when we are done, the galaxy will remember the lesson forever. She turned to her officers. Receive the coordinates, plot a course, and prepare the fleet for war. The communication ended. Kethra stood in silence as the great human fleet began to move. 5,000 ships of vengeance, burning toward the Rethvon homeworlds with death in their hearts. She thought about the colony ship New Beginnings, the children crying, the parents dying to protect them. She thought about the child Maya still asking for her family, and she thought about what was about to happen to the Rethvon Collective. For the first time in her long life, Kethra was glad she was not the enemy of humanity, because the humans did not forgive, and they never forgot. The Velkhari watched from a safe distance as humanity went to war. It was not a war, it was an extinction. The 7th Fleet reached the first Rethvon colony world in 3 days. The parasites had no warning. One moment, their skies were empty. The next, human ships filled the horizon like an iron cloud. Admiral Reyes did not negotiate. She did not demand surrender. She did not ask questions. She simply gave the order. Burn it. Weapons fired from orbit. Weapons the Velkhari had never seen. Beams of pure energy that cut through the planet's crust. Bombs that cracked continents in half. Swarms of tiny machines that ate organic matter and turned living things to dust. The Rethvon world died in 6 hours. Every hive, every breeding pit, every single parasite on the surface. Gone. The humans moved on to the next world. Velkhari intelligence officers watched the footage with growing horror. They had fought the Rethvon for 3,000 years. They had lost millions of soldiers and hundreds of worlds. The war had seemed endless, unwinnable. The humans ended it in 40 cycles. World by world, the Rethvon Collective fell. Their fleets tried to fight back. They gathered their greatest armadas and threw them at the human advance. It made no difference. Human ships were faster. Human weapons were deadlier. Human tactics were brutal and effective. The Rethvon had never faced an enemy that did not fear them. They did not know how to respond. On the 19th cycle, the humans reached the Rethvon homeworld, the ancient planet where the parasites had first evolved, the heart of their civilization for millions of years. The battle lasted 2 days. Thousands of Rethvon ships defended their home with desperate fury. They fought to the last. It did not matter. When the fighting ended, Admiral Reyes descended to the surface with a ground force. They found the great breeding chambers deep underground. Millions of Rethvon eggs waiting to hatch. The future of the species. A Velkari observer aboard the Silent Witness recorded what happened next. The footage would be studied by military academies for centuries. Admiral Reyes stood before the breeding chambers. A Rethvon queen, ancient and enormous, lay dying at her feet. The queen spoke through a translation device. "Why?" the queen asked. "We are millions of years old. We have consumed 1,000 species. Why do you fight so hard for a handful of dead colonists?" Admiral Reyes looked down at the creature. Her face showed nothing but cold determination. "Because they were ours," she said simply. "Our people, our families, our children. You took them from us. Did you think we would forget? Did you think we would forgive?" "We did not know," the queen whispered. "Your species was not in our records. We did not know who you were. Now you do." Admiral Reyes raised her hand. Behind her, human soldiers aimed their weapons at the breeding chambers. Millions of eggs, the last hope of the Rethvon species. "You killed 4,600 humans," the admiral said. "You killed children, and now your entire species will pay the price. This is what humanity does. We remember every death. We repay every wound. No matter how long it takes, no matter how far we have to go, we never stop." The queen made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "You would destroy an entire species for revenge? What manner of monsters are you?" Admiral Reyes smiled that cold, terrible smile. "We are humans, and we protect our own." She lowered her hand. The soldiers fired. The breeding chambers burned. The eggs died. The queen screamed once and then fell silent forever. Within 40 cycles, the Rethvon collective ceased to exist. Every world sterilized, every hive destroyed, every single parasite hunted down and eliminated. A species that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years was gone, erased from existence. The humans did not celebrate. They did not claim territory. They did not demand payment or power. They simply retrieved the child Maya from the Velkari and prepared to leave. Admiral Reyes sent one final message to Archon Veltharon before the fleet departed. "Thank you for the coordinates. The child is safe. She will be returned to her extended family in human space. As for the Rethvon, they no longer exist. Consider it a gift to the galaxy." The Archon responded carefully. "Admiral, your actions have changed everything. Every species in this galaxy will hear what you did. They will fear you." "Good." Admiral Reyes paused. "Let them fear us. Let them remember what happens when humanity is wronged. And let them know one thing above all else. Our children are sacred. Touch them, and we will find you. No matter where you hide, no matter how powerful you think you are, we will find you and we will end you." Is that a threat? It is a promise. The Dominion watched our people die and did nothing. I understand orders. I understand politics. But I do not forget. If the Velkari ever harm human civilians, we will return. And next time, we will not be so polite. The communication ended. The 7th Fleet gathered in formation, 5,000 ships that had just erased a species from existence. They activated their strange technology, and reality tore open once more. One by one, they vanished through the wound in space. Then they were gone. Kethra stood on the bridge of the Silent Witness and watched the stars return to normal. The humans had left. The Rethvon were destroyed. The galaxy was changed forever. She thought about the child Maya, 7 years old with flowers on her dress. The humans had come across the galaxy with 5,000 warships and destroyed an entire species to save that one little girl. What kind of creatures did such things? She filed her final report on the humans. It was simple and short. Archon Veltharon read the report and ordered a new entry added to the Imperial Archives. For the first time in Dominion history, a species was not classified by threat level or technology or territory. Instead, they received a single warning. The entry read, Humanity Species Status, Spacefaring. Territorial, extremely dangerous. Home region, beyond the galactic rim. Full extent unknown. Military strength, unknown. Minimum observed, 5,000 plus warships in single fleet. Threat assessment, absolute. Imperial directive, do not engage. Do not provoke. Do not harm their civilians. If humans are encountered, treat with extreme respect. If humans request assistance, provide it without hesitation. Special warning, human children are protected by the entire species. Harming a human child will result in total retaliation, regardless of cost. Final note, if conflict with humanity is unavoidable, immediate surrender is recommended. The entry spread across the galaxy. Every species read it. Every government studied the footage of the Rethvon destruction. Every ruler learned the same lesson. Humanity was not a species to be conquered or threatened or ignored. Humanity remembered its dead. Humanity protected its young. And humanity never, ever forgave. Far away in a quiet home on a green world beyond the galactic rim, a little girl named Maya sat in her grandmother's lap. She still had nightmares sometimes. She still cried for parents who would never come home. But she was alive. She was safe. And she was loved. That was what humanity fought for. That was why they would never stop. That was the truth that the galaxy had finally learned. Some species could be frightened into submission. Some could be bargained with or reasoned with or threatened. But humanity just had to be left alone because the alternative was too terrible to imagine.